Welcome to another chapter of PostgreSQL. In previous chapters, we discussed about constraints in SQL. So the meaning of constraint is a limitation or restriction. These constraints are used to specify certain rules for information in table. These constraints are also used to put limit on type of data that can be inserted in a table or a column. So if you want certain type of data to be inserted in a column and you don't want any other type of data, so for that we can put some constraints, we can put some limit, and with the help of constraints. Constraints can be applied at column level or table level. So in this particular chapter, we are going to learn about primary key constraint in SQL and how we can apply it. We have seen examples of applying primary key or setting primary key, but in this chapter, we'll specifically discuss what is primary key constraint in SQL. So it works as a unique identifier for each record in a table. So whenever we insert some values in a table, all values are inserted in rows. So the more there are number of rows, so for every row there should be a unique identifier, so that we can get information of that particular row, or we can get information between a given range of rows, and various things like that can be done with the help of primary key. There are only unique and not null values in a primary key. There can be only one primary key in the table, but a primary key can consist of single or multiple columns. Primary key with single or multiple columns is known as a composite key. So now we'll see how we can add primary key constraint on an existing table. So we created a table in our previous examples. The table was named as user. It was created in public schema. It had ID and name. It had two columns. ID was integer and not null, but we did not set ID as primary key. And now with the help of alter table statement, we can set that particular value as set any particular column as primary key. So we will the command of alter table is very much simple. You just write alter table, then you write the name of schema, and then you write the name of table. So alter table public dot user, and then you add constraint, and then you give name of your constraint. So because we are adding a primary key constraint, so we'll enter user underscore p key, and then we are writing primary key and ID. Again, this name can be anything. This name is just to identify the constraint that we are applying on any particular table. So either at the time of creating a table, so whenever we create a table, so we can set constraint like this also. So constraint room p key primary key room ID. So this we discussed in previous example, where we, at the time of creating a table, we can set that. Suppose you get some table in which primary key constraint is missing, or any type of constraint is missing, so with the help of alter table statement, we can add that constraint later also. Now we have our pg admin ready here. So in pg admin we have schemas. In schemas we have public schema, and in public schema we are now in the users table. So whenever you will expand a table, you will see there is a section of constraint, and in that section of constraint you will see whatever type of constraints are there, you will see them. So you can see a key is a symbol of key is just next to this room p key. That means it's a primary key. So now we will set primary key on user table also. If you will expand user tables constraints, you will see there is no such constraint here. Now we will try to set a constraint using query tool here. So right click on users table, open your query tool, and in your query tool you can set this constraint. Again, what is the benefit of this constraint? Benefit of adding constraint is whenever new records will be inserted in this particular table, whenever new users will be inserted in this table. So you will see that after inserting new users, for every user there will be a unique identifier. So now just alter table public dot user means in the public schema in which we have user table, we have to alter that. And how is the alteration going to be? The alter will add a constraint user underscore p key and primary key. It will set primary key on column id. Again, this is the name of column and it should be present in your table. Now select it and execute it. So you can see query returned successfully. Now when we will refresh the user table, you will see in constraint our user underscore p key, the name which we gave to user p key has now been created, and now we can go to its properties. So you can see its name is user p key, its definition is on id. So you can see column is on id, and on SQL we have nothing. So this way our constraint has now been set. And now if you want to also make your columns auto increment, so for that you can go to the constraint part. Again, I am right clicking the particular column, going to properties, going to constraint, and you can see that when we created this table, so at the time of creation we manually set the increment as 1, minimum as 1 and maximum as 110. Let's say there will be maximum 100 users in this table, so you can set maximum as 100. It will be identity, and identity will be always. We discussed about always and by default in previous examples also. In case of always, this particular id will always be system generated, and in case of by default, this particular id will, we can also provide a value for this id, but because we are making it auto increment and we are setting the auto increment here of 1, so there is no need to set it as by default. It will be always be auto generated. So this is how we can set primary key constraint, and in the next chapter we will see how we can insert some data in our tables using the SQL query.